Hello everyone and welcome back to Star Wars Archives. Ever since the drop of the Acolyte trailer, there's been so much conversation about this clip right here. And more importantly, who this red lightsaber wielder actually is. Now I even did a short TikTok video myself on there, so if you would be interested in any form of TikTok videos, be sure to check it out. But today's video is going to be a more long form video where I go through all of the options separately on who it could possibly be and why I think they would be them. I'm going to start with who I think is the least likely and then move through to who I think is the most likely by the end of the video. Now the least likely option I've seen is definitely a young version of Palpatine. Now the likelihood of this in my eyes is completely impossible. The Acolyte is stated to have taken place roughly around 132 BBY. And if anyone doesn't know, BBY is the date they use in Star Wars for before the Battle of Yavin and after the Battle of Yavin. And Palpatine was set to be born in 82 BBY, making him not even born yet for about another 50 years by the time of the Acolyte. So that alone makes this completely impossible. The next character that I've seen theorised has been Darth Tenebrous' Twi'lek Master. Now I think this is still unlikely, seeing as he's not actually canon yet, and even in Legends we do very little about him. All we knew is that he was born between the years of 167 to 124 BBY, which means he would technically be around if he was canon. But even in Legends we knew nothing other than he was Tenebrous' master and that Tenebrous killed him when he saw no further use for him. The next option I want to talk about is if Disney came up with a completely new Sith Lord that was around during this time. Now I think this would definitely be possible. I don't think it would be liked by the fans particularly because of how much we like to stick by the canon and what's already known. So if they wanted to introduce a new Sith Lord, it would require some heavy explanation due to the current canon and even the EU, which the show writer herself has said she's going to take a lot of influence from. Now, I wouldn't mind this if it made sense, but knowing how Disney do a lot of things, I could see them doing this, not really explaining it much, and it taking some heavy backlash. So with the more unlikely options out the way, I'm now going to get into the options which I think are genuinely possible. Starting off with a dark side Acolyte, or a dark Jedi, which is basically just a user of the Force which taps into the dark side, has a red lightsaber perhaps, but isn't actually a Sith. Examples of this are Baylan Skoll, Kylo Ren, Asajj Ventress, and Dagan Gera. Now I could genuinely see this happening. One discourse I'm seeing people have with this is the massive force push at the end of the trailer, and that someone would need to be a Sith Lord and have that level of power to be able to pull that off against 8 Jedi. And to a certain extent I do agree with this as well. But it being a dark side Acolyte would allow the Jedi to keep their narrative that they haven't seen the Sith within a millennium. Whereas if it is a Sith, they'd either have to hide it, which wouldn't be too out of the ordinary for the Jedi, or the Sith Lord would have to kill everyone who witnessed him. Now the final two options definitely make the most sense in my opinion, and I think they are also what the fans would love to see the most. Firstly, I'll talk about Darth Plagueis. Now Darth Plagueis was born between the years of 147 to 120 BBY, which Disney could definitely change those dates a little bit in canon if they wanted to make him a little bit older, but that would make him around the age of 15 to 20 during the Acolyte. I think the shot of the lightsaber always backs this up as well, as the hand looks like a human or a species representative of humans such as the Moon, which is obviously Darth Plagueis' species. I also thought of the idea that if this is Darth Plagueis and he is young, then perhaps he slipped up and got caught out by the Jedi, which is why they found him. And because he's young and he's reckless, he's gone into combat and he ends up fighting them, which would obviously end up in them all being killed. As we know, Darth Plagueis was extremely powerful. The final Sith I'd like to talk about is Darth Tenebrous, if you haven't guessed already. Now, in Legends, Darth Tenebrous was a male Biff who died in the year 67 BBY, which would place him alive in around the time of the Acolyte. But in canon, all we know is that he was Darth Plagueis' master. We obviously know Darth Tenebrous was extremely powerful, and I think all fans would love to see him in the show, even if he's not a Biff. I've seen a lot of people say that if he showed up as a Biff, some people would find it quite goofy, especially considering that the only other time we've really seen a Biff is at the beginning of episode 4 and they were a cantina band. But I personally think his design is really cool looking and I would love him to stay as a Biff. So they are all the options that I came up with for who I think this red lightsaber wielder could be in the Acolyte. Now me personally, I'd love it to be either Tenebrous or Plagueis. But to be honest, as long as Disney do it well and it works for a good show, then that's all I want, because the shows have been hit and miss and I just want something to get everyone on side. As it's our first kind of look into the High Republic on screen, I think it has to be a hit. Because if it's a miss, then people just aren't going to want to see more. But if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, comment and subscribe. Check out my socials in the description, and may the Force be with you, always.